Have you ever had one of those mornings where you are, just frantically tearing your house apart looking for your keys?
Oh, absolutely. Checking under the same couch cushion for like the fifth time.
Right. You're dumping out your bag, your heart is just hammering, and you are already, 15 minutes late? You are essentially turning your entire immediate reality upside down.
Completely.
And then suddenly, you reach into your own coat pocket, and there they are. They were on you the entire time.
Yeah, it's a universally humbling experience.
It really is. You spent all that energy, the panic, the sheer exhaustion on a search that was completely unnecessary because, well, what you needed was already right there in your possession.
But if we slow down and actually look at the mechanics of what is happening in that moment, it reveals a lot about human cognition.
How so?
Well, your attention was so intensely fixated on scanning the external environment, the tables, the floor, the cushions, that you completely lost touch with your own immediate physical reality.
Wow.
Your brain basically bypassed the simple sensation of a heavy object in your pocket because it was absolutely convinced the solution had to be out there in the room somewhere.
That is so true. And that frantic, exhausting external search for something that is, already on your person, that is the perfect entry point for what we are unpacking today.
It really is.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are exploring a profoundly moving spiritual teaching by Guru Nanak Dev Ji. It is a composition from a specific section of Sikh scripture set to Rag Tilang.
Right. And for those who might not know, we should probably give a little context on what a rag actually is.
Please do.
So, in Indian classical music, a rag isn't just a melody. It's a very specific musical framework designed to evoke a particular psychological mood or color.
Okay.
And Rag Tilang specifically carries this deep, resonant feeling of yearning. I mean, it is literally the sound of longing for a loved one.
A longing. Okay, I love that. And that musical mood really sets the stage for what is essentially a roadmap out of the sheer exhaustion of modern life. And it does this by shifting our focus radically inward.
Exactly. Guru Nanak Dev Ji frames this entire journey through a very intimate, emotional core metaphor.
Right.
Rather than using dry, abstract philosophy, the teaching is voiced from the perspective of a soul bride.
The soul bride.
Yeah, and she is desperately searching for her husband, Lord, which is the poetic representation of the divine, the ultimate source of peace and unconditional fulfillment.
So we're going to trace how this bride moves from total despair to absolute peace. And in doing so, we're going to look at some highly practical challenges. Things regarding our own egos, how we define love, and the incredibly difficult act of surrender.
And the journey starts exactly where most of us find ourselves on, like a random Tuesday.
Oh, totally. Just in this raw state of being completely lost and looking for fulfillment in all the wrong places.
Yeah. And the imagery used for the soul bride at this initial stage, it really does not hold back.
It's pretty blunt.
It is. She's described as foolish, ignorant, and proud.
Which hurts a little to hear, but it's a very sharp diagnosis of the human condition.
Oh, absolutely. The opening lines identify the root cause of our spiritual and emotional exhaustion with a very direct question. The text says, "Within the home of your own self, why do you not enjoy the love of your Lord?"
Meaning the divine is so very near, so why do we insist on searching outside?
Right. Guru Nanak is pointing out that this happens because the soul bride is intoxicated. She's intoxicated with greed, pride, egotism, and she's engrossed in Maya.
Okay, let's actually define Maya here, because I think it often gets oversimplified in pop culture as just, the physical world is an illusion, like we are literally living in the Matrix or something.
Right.
But it's way more psychological than that, isn't it?
Considerably more, yeah. Maya, in this context, is the persistent, intoxicating mirage that our worth and our peace are tied to external metrics. It's that deeply ingrained belief that if we just secure the right job or find the perfect partner or accumulate a certain amount of wealth or social status, then we will finally be satisfied.
The idea that the finish line is always just one more achievement away.
Exactly. And because we believe that, our ego demands that we just keep running.
It's exhausting, and I look at how we operate today, and it seems like we have taken that exact external search and just, rebranded it for the modern era.
Oh, for sure.
Even people who consider themselves highly spiritual fall into this trap. I mean, we have invented this entirely new category of spiritual hustle culture.
Yes, spiritual hustle culture.
We convince ourselves that if we just read, 50 books on enlightenment or travel to a silent retreat in the mountains or buy the exact right crystal, then we'll find peace. It is the exact same dynamic.
It really is.
It reminds me of someone who wants to stop procrastinating, so instead of just sitting down to do the work, they spend 3 days downloading and categorizing 20 different productivity and habit tracking apps.
That is a perfect parallel. You feel like you were doing something meaningful, right?
Right. But you are just creating a highly optimized, fancier form of avoidance.
Exactly. Because the ego loves a project. If spiritual peace is framed as a project, something to be acquired or achieved or mastered, well, the ego gets to stay in the driver's seat.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But Guru Nanak's teaching is totally uncompromising on this point. It clarifies that without true inner alignment, nothing is obtained, no matter how frantically one might run around.
So the outward frenzy, whether it is chasing a promotion at work or chasing enlightenment through apps and retreats, is the very mechanism preventing the inward realization.
Right. The noise of the search completely drowns out the quiet reality of what is already there.
Okay, so recognizing that the hustle culture, even the spiritual hustle, is a trap, that leaves us with a rather massive problem.
It does.
If running around outside doesn't work, what do we actually do? Like, how do we stop the frantic search?
Well, the teaching addresses this by shifting the imagery completely away from the noisy external world. It zooms way, way in on the quiet, intimate act of getting ready.
Preparing yourself.
Yes. It introduces the idea of spiritual adornments, and the poetry becomes incredibly vivid here.
Right, the cosmetics metaphor.
Exactly. To prepare for union with the divine, the soul bride is instructed to apply spiritual cosmetics. But these are internal adjustments.
Okay.
The specific instruction is to apply the fear of God as mascara to adorn the eyes, and to make the love of the Lord her ornament. These are presented as the true prerequisites for becoming a committed, radiant soul bride.
Now, I have to be honest, I struggle a bit with the specific phrasing.
The word fear.
Yeah, the fear part. If the ultimate goal of this entire framework is deep, intimate love and union, why are we applying fear as mascara?
It sounds contradictory.
It really does. Because biologically and psychologically, fear triggers our fight or flight response. Fear releases cortisol. It makes us close our eyes or put up walls or just run away. Building a foundation of intimate love on a base of fear feels like a complete contradiction.
I get that. And it is a contradiction if we apply our modern, everyday definition of fear, which usually means terror or, the anticipation of harm.
Right.
But if we dig into the linguistic and spiritual context here, the word used often translates more accurately to profound reverence or awe.
Oh, okay.
Think about the cognitive shift that happens when you stand at the edge of the ocean during a massive storm, or when you look through a telescope at a galaxy millions of light years away.
You feel incredibly small.
Exactly. You feel small, but you don't feel terrified in a way that makes you want to hide in a closet.
Right, it's different.
You feel a sense of overwhelming majesty that completely shatters your normal self-centered worldview. And that specific type of awe is the fear being described here.
Oh, I see. So it is an experience that shrinks the ego rather than shrinking the self out of danger.
Precisely. And think about the specific metaphor of mascara. What is the function of mascara?
It frames the eye.
Right. It defines the boundary of vision and draws attention to the act of seeing. When you apply this profound awe and reverence as your mascara, it frames your perception of reality.
It changes how you look at everything.
It clears away the blurred vision of the arrogance and greed we discussed earlier. You stop looking at the world as a resource to be exploited or a puzzle to be life-hacked.
And you start looking at it with wonder.
Exactly. Once your vision is framed by that awe, you are capable of truly seeing. And only then can you put on the true ornament, which is love. The reverence opens the eyes. The love makes the soul radiant.
That makes a lot more sense. The awe prepares the biological and spiritual hardware, basically, to actually perceive the divine that was sitting in the pocket the whole time.
That's a great way to put it.
So the soul bride is now properly adorned. The ego's greed has been replaced by reverence and love. But what is the actual action step?
Well, the teaching introduces a brilliant narrative pivot right here. The seeker realizes she needs guidance, so she goes to consult the experts.
Right.
She asks the happy, pure soul brides who have already found union with the husband Lord for their secret.
It is a moment of deep humility, really.
Yeah.
The seeker is essentially admitting that her own intellect isn't enough to cross the final threshold.
Yeah, exactly. She asks these happy brides, "How did you obtain your husband Lord?" And the answer they provide is the absolute turning point of the teaching.
And it's not what you'd expect.
Not at all. They do not offer a complex ritual. They don't provide a 10-step optimization plan. Their secret is radical, unconditional surrender.
Wow.
They tell her to accept whatever the divine does is good and to completely do away with her own cleverness and self-will.
Okay, let me pause you there. Because doing away with cleverness and self-will sounds incredibly difficult for a modern human functioning in society.
Oh, it's very difficult.
I mean, if I drop my cleverness and self-will at my corporate job tomorrow, I'm probably going to get fired. We rely on our cleverness to pay the rent, to navigate relationships, to literally survive. How are we supposed to reconcile that?
It is a really valid question, but it's crucial to distinguish between practical intelligence and egoic cunning.
Okay, explain that.
The teaching is not suggesting you become intellectually vacant or that you stop participating in the practicalities of life. It is targeting the transactional mindset.
The transactional mindset.
Yeah. It is addressing the way we use our cleverness to try and negotiate with the universe.
Like the idea that if I put the right coins into the cosmic vending machine, I am guaranteed the snack I want.
Exactly. We treat spirituality and life in general as a contract. If I am a good person, the universe owes me a quiet life. Or if I meditate every day, I shouldn't have to experience grief.
Right.
That is our self-will and our cleverness constantly trying to life hack suffering. The happy brides are pointing out that as long as you are trying to outsmart the universe, as long as you are relying on your own cunning to control the narrative of your life, you remain trapped in the ego.
You're still just running around.
Yes. True surrender means dropping the negotiation entirely.
Yeah.
It is accepting the reality of the present moment, whatever the divine will brings, without the ego's constant commentary of, this is unfair or I deserve better.
And the teaching describes this act of giving up the body and mind as applying a sweet perfume, right?
Yes, the perfume of surrender.
That reframes it beautifully. It isn't about losing your ability to think. It's about dropping the exhausting burden of trying to control the uncontrollable.
Exactly.
Which is terrifying because the ego wants a guarantee. It always wants a guarantee. But I can also see how dropping that negotiation would be incredibly liberating.
Liberating is the perfect word.
So if we actually manage to do this, if we apply this perfume of surrender and stop trying to outsmart our own lives, what happens? Like, what fills the void when the ego steps back?
When that selfhood and cleverness are finally given up, the space isn't left empty. It is flooded with a profound transformation.
Okay.
The teaching states that the husband-lord bestows a gracious glance. It marks a historic shift in the soul bride's existence. The text specifically mentions that she obtains the 9 treasures.
Okay, let's decode that term. What are the 9 treasures in this context? Because I am assuming we aren't talking about, actual chests of gold and rubies.
No, definitely not. The 9 treasures, or navneeti in traditional Indian philosophy, generally refer to all the different types of worldly and spiritual wealth one could possibly attain.
Got it.
But in the context of Guru Nanak's teaching, this isn't about acquiring external riches. It is a metaphor for ultimate, unshakable inner contentment.
Inner contentment.
Yes, it means you possess everything of true value. You lack nothing. But the most crucial part of this reward is the actual state of being that the soul bride enters.
Which is?
The poetry describes her as being imbued with love, intoxicated with delight, and entering a state known as sahaj.
Sahaj. How should we understand that state? If I drop my self-will, am I just, sitting in a cave staring at a wall? Is sahaj just passive inaction?
It is the exact opposite of passivity, actually. Sahaj is a concept that points to a state of absolute natural poise.
Natural poise?
Yeah, it is an effortless, spontaneous flow of life. Think back to the frantic, exhausting running around we discussed at the beginning, the anxiety of constantly trying to optimize and control everything.
Looking for the keys.
Right. Sahaj is the absence of that friction. It is an internal state of perfect equilibrium. When you are in sahaj, you are fully engaged in the world. You are acting, working, and living.
But the feeling is different.
Completely. You are doing it without the ego-driven anxiety of needing things to go a specific way. You aren't forcing the current of the river, and you aren't fighting against it either.
You are simply moving with it.
Moving with it, naturally and beautifully absorbed in love, regardless of what the external circumstances are.
So it is action without the underlying panic. It is a permanent state of flow rather than just a fleeting moment.
That's exactly it.
And what I find so moving is how this state of sahaj completely redefines the concepts of beauty and wisdom at the very end of the journey. The final imagery describes the soul bride, now united with the divine, as being beautiful, glorious, brilliant, and truly wise.
It completely upends our societal value system.
It really does. We are so conditioned to define beauty by entirely external, physical metrics. And we define wisdom by how many degrees someone holds or how much data they can recall or, like we said earlier, how cleverly they can manipulate a situation to their advantage.
Right, the life hacking.
Yeah. But Guru Nanak redefines these traits as internal spiritual states of rest. True beauty isn't an external trait, it is the radiance that comes from a mind that has stopped fighting itself.
That's beautifully said.
And true wisdom isn't knowing how to life hack the world. True wisdom is knowing how to surrender to what is. It is the profound realization that the absolute peace you have been desperately seeking out there in the world was patiently waiting inside your own heart all along.
That is the core revelation. You are beautiful and wise because you have achieved that natural poise. You have dropped the exhausting burden of the ego.
Wow.
The journey of the soul bride proves that you do not need to travel to the ends of the earth to find the divine. You just need to clear your vision with reverence, drop the clever negotiations, and be still enough to recognize what is already within the home of your own self.
This has been such a vital roadmap to trace. Let's just pull all these pieces together for everyone listening. We started with this deeply relatable image of exhaustion, the frantic ego-driven search, running around the external world, trying to optimize our way into feeling complete.
Right. And we learned that the antidote isn't more doing, but a shift in perception.
Exactly. We need to adorn our inner vision with the clear mascara of reverence and awe, allowing us to see past our own greed and put on the ornament of love.
And from there, we absorbed the secret counsel of the happy brides. We learned the absolute necessity of dropping our transactional mindset.
The vending machine idea.
Right. We have to stop treating life as a contract negotiation and apply the sweet perfume of total surrender, giving up our egoic cunning and accepting the divine will.
And finally, we saw that the ultimate reward for dropping that control is the state of sahaj, natural poise, effortless peace, and a complete redefinition of what it means to be beautiful and wise-rooted entirely in internal stillness rather than external noise.
It's so powerful.
It is. In a world that constantly demands we hustle harder, optimize every single second, and look outward for validation, Guru Nanak Dev Ji offers a breathtaking, timeless shift in perspective.
It is a profound reminder that the connection we are all ultimately looking for cannot be built or bought. It can only be realized when we finally stop running.
So think about your own life as you move through the rest of this week. Consider a specific challenge, a stressor, or a goal that is currently keeping you up at night. Be really honest with yourself. What clever tricks, what endless negotiations, what frantic external running around are you using to try and force the outcome you want?
And what might actually happen? How might your experience of this very day change if you simply drop the contract?
Exactly. If you stop trying to outsmart the universe and practice total surrender instead. Because just like those missing keys you were tearing the house apart for, the absolute peace you are looking for is already right there in your pocket.